Welcome, esteemed listeners, to our riveting Hercule Poirot audiobook series, where the master sleuth's unparalleled intellect cracks the most baffling crimes. Today, we tee off with Hercule Poirot's deadly murder on the links, a pulse-pounding mystery of betrayal, buried secrets, and a fatal stab on the sun-soaked greens of France. Envision this. A millionaire's desperate summons lures Poirot to a seaside villa, only for a midnight cry to reveal his body sprawled in a bloodied bunker, dagger gleaming under the moon. Was it a vengeful rival from distant shores, or a closer betrayal on the fairway? Grip your clubs tight. Poirot's little grey cells are about to expose the killer's swing. Dive in. The hazards await. Chapter 1. The beckoning summons. The sun hung high over the undulating greens of Merlinville-sur-Mer, casting a golden haze that turned the French golf course into a canvas of emerald and azure. Waves from the nearby channel whispered against the cliffs, a rhythmic counterpoint to the occasional thwack of club-meeting ball. Hercule Poirot, impeccably attired in a lightweight linen suit despite the heat, paused on the fairway, his egg-shaped head tilted as he surveyed the terrain. At his side, Captain Arthur Hastings adjusted his cap, wiping sweat from his brow with a handkerchief. "Poirot, old chap, this holiday was meant for relaxation. Yet here you are, scrutinizing the bunkers as if they hide state secrets." Poirot's moustache twitched in amusement, his green eyes gleaming. "Ah, Hastings, but the golf course is a battlefield of precision and deception. One false swing and catastrophe, much like life, non?" He had agreed to this jaunt to the Normandy coast on a whim, seeking respite from London's fog, but his mind, that relentless engine, never truly idled. They had been invited by a mutual acquaintance, a retired diplomat with a villa nearby, and the links provided a perfect diversion. Or so Hastings had hoped. Their game was interrupted by a breathless messenger boy, pedaling furiously up the path on a bicycle that seemed too large for his frame. "Monsieur Poirot, urgent telegram." The lad thrust the envelope forward, his cheeks flushed from exertion. Poirot accepted it with a courteous nod, tipping the boy generously. As the cyclist departed, Poirot unfolded the missive, his expression shifting from curiosity to grave intensity. "What is it?" Hastings pressed, peering over his shoulder. The words were stark. "Monsieur Poirot, imperative I see you at once. Grave danger from past shadows. Come to Villa Geneviève immediately. Paul Renauld." Poirot stroked his moustache thoughtfully. "Renauld, the millionaire from South America, now retired here. His plea carries the scent of desperation, Hastings. We must go." Without further ado, they abandoned their clubs with the caddy and hailed a taxi from the clubhouse, the engine rumbling to life as they sped toward the villa perched on the cliffs, overlooking the sea. The drive wound through sun-baked lanes lined with poppies and wild lavender, the air alive with the buzz of bees and the distant cry of gulls. Villa Geneviève emerged like a mirage, a sprawling estate of white stucco and terracotta tiles, its gardens a riot of bougainvillea cascading over wrought iron gates. A butler, formal in starched livery, greeted them at the entrance, his face etched with worry. "Monsieur Renauld awaits in the study. This way, sirs." The interior was a blend of opulence and restraint, marble floors echoing their footsteps, walls adorned with abstract paintings that hinted at Renaud's modern taste. Paul Renauld rose from behind a mahogany desk as they entered, a man in his late 50s with silver-threaded hair and eyes shadowed by fatigue. His handshake was firm, but his palms clammy. "Poirot, thank God you've come. And Captain Hastings, welcome. Forgive the abruptness, but time is a luxury I may not have. They seated themselves in leather armchairs, a decanter of cognac untouched on the side table. Renauld leaned forward, his voice a low rumble. I've enemies from my days in Santiago, shadowy figures tied to old ventures. Lately, threats, notes slipped under doors, figures lurking on the links at dusk. I fear for my life and my family's. Hastings frowned. Have you informed the police? Renauld waved dismissively. Giraud from the Sûreté is competent, but this requires finesse. Poirot, your reputation for unraveling the impossible. Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. Tell me of your family, monsieur. Who shares this villa? Renauld sighed. My wife, Eloise, devoted, but fragile since our move from Chile. My son Jack, home from university, full of youthful fire, and our maid, Denise, loyal but observant. A faint hesitation colored his words, intriguing Poirot, as Renauld elaborated on his Chilean mining empire, fortunes built on copper veins but marred by rivalries. A subtle tension permeated the room. Eloise entered briefly, a graceful woman with raven hair pinned in an elegant chignon, offering tea with hands that trembled slightly. Paul, you worry too much, she murmured, her accent a soft lilt from her Parisian roots, but her eyes, darting to the window, betrayed unease. Jack followed, a strapping young man with a jaw set in defiance, muttering about overreacting to phantoms before excusing himself to the terrace. Denise, the maid, served silently, her uniform crisp, but Poirot noted her eavesdropping glances, subtle yet telling. Mademoiselle, he addressed her gently as she poured. You've seen these lurkers. She startled, nearly spilling. Only shadows, monsieur. On the golf course near the 9th hole. Monsieur Renauld plays there often. Her voice held a quiver, but her gaze was steady, perhaps too much so. The afternoon waned into twilight, the sun dipping toward the horizon in a blaze of orange and purple. Renauld insisted they stay for dinner, but Poirot demurred, promising a return the next day. Rest easy tonight, monsieur. Hercule Poirot is on the case. As they departed, Hastings whispered, Seems a bit theatrical, don't you think? Phantoms on the links. Poirot chuckled softly. Theatricality often masks the genuine mon ami. Note the family's undercurrents, Eloise's tremor, Jack's dismissal, Denise's watchfulness. They dined at a seaside bistro, savouring moule marinière under strings of fairy lights, the conversation drifting to lighter topics. But as night enveloped the coast, a storm brewed offshore, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Back at their hotel, Poirot retired early, but Hastings lingered in the lounge, nursing a brandy and chatting with locals about Renaud's reclusive habits. It was near midnight when the phone jangled in their suite. Hastings answered, his face paling. Poirot, it's the villa. Renaud's been attacked. They rushed out, the taxi slicing through rain-slicked roads, lightning illuminating the cliffs in stark flashes. At Villa Geneviève, chaos reigned. Police lanterns bobbed in the gardens. Giraud, a burly detective with a spade-like beard, barking orders. Eloise met them at the door, her nightgown sodden from the downpour, tears streaking her face, a cry from the links, we found him. She led them to the golf course's edge, where floodlights revealed a gruesome scene. Paul Renauld lay sprawled in a shallow bunker, his evening attire torn, a dagger protruding from his chest. Blood pooled in the sand, mingling with rainwater into muddy rivulets. His face was contorted in frozen terror, eyes wide as if staring at an apparition. Poirot knelt, oblivious to the mud staining his trousers, his gloved hands hovering over the body. Stabbed once, fatally, through the heart, rigor just setting in, death within the hour. Giraud snorted. Obvious burglary gone wrong. Footprints lead to the cliff path. But Poirot's eyes narrowed at a misplaced golf club nearby, its head smeared with fresh blood, incongruous in the scene. This club, from the bag in the shed, not used in struggle, placed deliberately. Hastings scanned the darkness. Who heard the cry? Jack stepped forward, his shirt untucked, fists clenched. I did, from my room, ran out, found him like this. Denise hovered behind, wringing her apron. I was in the kitchen, heard nothing until the screams. Poirot questioned them swiftly, reconstructing the evening. Renauld had retired early, but slipped out for a moonlit walk on the links. A habit, Eloise claimed. Amid the hysteria, Eloise fainting into Jack's arms, Giraud trampling potential evidence, Poirot imposed order. Mes amis, panic serves the killer. Let us timeline. Renaud leaves at 10, cry at 11, discovery immediate. Denise, your kitchen window overlooks the path. You saw no one? She shook her head, but Poirot noted her hesitation. Probing gently, he uncovered her brief absence to fetch coal, aligning with the timeline but clearing her of opportunity. You are innocent of this act, mademoiselle. Return inside. Warmth awaits. The household exhaled in relief, the maid's exoneration a small anchor in the storm. Giraud grumbled about interference, but Poirot ignored him, his gaze fixed on a faint footprint in the sand. Elegant, not the tramp's boot Giraud assumed. As authorities draped the body, Poirot murmured to Hastings, "A setup, mon ami. The dagger's hilt, clean, no prints. And that club, a red herring on the green." Rain eased to a drizzle as they returned to the villa, the family huddled in the study, blankets draped over shoulders. Poirot assured them, "Order returns for now. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow, the little grey cells hunt." A momentary veil descended, chaos contained, suspicions kindled but not inflamed. Yet the killer's cunning footprint lingered in Poirot's mind, a sandy whisper beckoning deeper into the labyrinth of lies, the night closing with thunder's fading growl. Chapter 2. Shadows of Deception. Dawn broke over Merlinville-sur-Mer like a reluctant confession, the sun rising in a blaze of coral and gold that gilded the dew-kissed fairways of the golf course. The storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and charged, the channel's waves now a gentle murmur against the cliffs. Villa Geneviève stood silent, its white facade marred by the night's tragedy, police tape fluttering in the breeze like forgotten party streamers. Hercule Poirot, having snatched only a few hours of rest at the hotel, returned with Hastings in tow, his mind a vortex of deductions swirling amid the morning mist. "Hastings, mon ami," he murmured as they approached. "Death leaves echoes. Listen closely. The shadows deceive, but they also whisper truths." Giraud was already there, his burly frame dominating the scene as he directed officers to comb the links with rakes and notebooks. His beard jutted defiantly, his voice booming across the greens. "The footprints lead to the sea. Our killer escaped by boat, mark my words." Poirot exchanged a glance with Hastings, suppressing a smile. "Monsieur Giraud favors the dramatic, but let us probe the villa's heart. The family holds the key." Inside, the atmosphere was a cauldron of grief and suspicion. Eloise Renauld sat in the salon, her raven hair disheveled, a silk robe draped over her like a shroud. Jack paced the room, his youthful energy coiled into restless fury, while Denise prepared coffee with mechanical efficiency, her eyes red-rimmed but alert. Renault's study had been sealed, but Poirot's credentials, bolstered by a telegram from Paris, granted access. "We begin with questions," Poirot announced, assembling them around a low table where sunlight slanted through shutters, painting bars of light across the parquet floor. He started with Eloise, his tone velvet soft, yet probing. "Madame, your husband's fears. Elaborate. What shadows from Chile pursued him?" Eloise's fingers twisted a pearl necklace, the beads clicking like Morse code. "Paul built his empire on copper mines, but rivals schemed. Whispers of sabotage. A partner vanished under mysterious circumstances. He fled to France for peace, but letters arrived. Veiled threats demanding repayment for stolen shares." Her voice cracked, eyes glistening. "We argued fiercely last week. He accused me of indiscretions, but it was his paranoia speaking." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze unblinking. "Indiscretions, madame. Speak plainly." Eloise hesitated, glancing at Jack, who froze mid-stride. "A fleeting affair. Years ago, with a diplomat in Santiago. Paul discovered it recently. Old letters resurfaced. He feared blackmail, that it tied to the threats." Hastings shifted uncomfortably, but Poirot nodded encouragingly. "And these letters? Where now?" Eloise rose, leading them to a locked drawer in the bedroom bureau. With a key from her robe, she revealed a bundle tied in ribbon, the topmost envelope bearing a Chilean postmark. The group migrated to the study, where Giraud joined them, his boots tracking sand. Poirot examined the letters under a magnifying glass from his pocket case. "Interesting. The ink fades unevenly, as if aged artificially. And this one." He held up a missive laced with a faint, acrid scent. "Poison? No, but laced with a subtle toxin, perhaps to induce fear or illness." Jack snorted. Father was hale. No poison felled him. But Poirot's eyes sharpened. "This points to blackmail, yes, and a buried homicide. The vanished partner, perhaps murdered for the mines. Yet the paper, modern, not vintage. A forgery planted to mislead." Giraud scoffed, snatching the letter. "Nonsense. The footprints are real, tramped by a desperate extortionist." Poirot ignored him, turning to Jack. "Monsieur Jack, your alibi. You heard the cry from your room, but where were you earlier?" Jack's defiance wavered, his cheeks flushing. "In town, at the casino. A quick game, nothing more." Hastings raised an eyebrow. "At night, with your father's life threatened." Under Poirot's relentless gaze, Jack crumbled. "Debts, mounting from roulette. Father bailed me out before, but last night, I met a lender on the beach path, paid in cash, bloody currency from my savings." The revelation hung heavy, shadows lengthening as clouds scudded across the sun. Eloise gasped. "Jack, you fool. That path leads to the links. Did you see anything?" He shook his head vehemently. "Nothing. Just the lender, a shadowy figure in a cloak. We parted before 10. Denise, hovering with a tray, interjected softly. "I saw Master Jack return, monsieur, dishevelled, but alone." Poirot probed further, reconstructing movements. Eloise in her boudoir reading, Denise in the pantry polishing silver, Giraud's men patrolling the perimeter after the initial alert. Venturing outdoors, Poirot led them to the 9th hole, where Renault's body had been found. The bunker was cordoned, sand raked smooth by investigators, but Poirot knelt, sifting grains with gloved fingers. "See, here, a depression, as if something heavy was dragged. Not footprints, but a deliberate scuff." Giraud dug triumphantly with a trowel, unearthing a buried glove, stained with what appeared to be blood. The killer's, left in haste. But Poirot examined it closely. Left hand, size small, feminine perhaps, yet the blood is congealed oddly, as if applied post-mortem. Another plant, Monsieur Giraud, to divert your trenches. Tension simmered as accusations flew. Jack eyed his mother suspiciously. Eloise questioned Denise's loyalty. Giraud accused Poirot of meddling. The detective orchestrated a lineup on the fairway, having each mimic their evening paths under the now blazing sun. Demonstrate, if you please. Jack retraced his beach rendezvous, his strides long and purposeful. Eloise walked her garden circuit, pausing at a rosebush where thorns had snagged her robe. Denise fetched water from the well, her bucket clanging. In the midst of this, Poirot halted. Jack, your lender, describe the cloak. Jack faltered. Black, hooded, but the voice, raspy, disguised. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Disguised or familiar? Ah, the shadows deepen. A confrontation ensued on the green, Poirot revealing a casino chit from Jack's pocket, dated but forged, the ink smudged fresh. Not gambling, mon jeune ami, but a secret rendezvous. With whom? Jack confessed in a rush. Bella Duvain, a local actress. We've been meeting clandestinely. Father disapproved. Last night we argued on the path. She left in tears before the cry. The exposure rippled through the group. Eloise's hand flew to her mouth. Bella, the one from the theatre troupe. Giraud grumbled about romantic nonsense, but Poirot verified with a quick call to the hotel where Bella stayed. Her alibi confirmed by the concierge, seeing her return disheveled, but alone. You are cleared, Monsieur Jack, of murder, at least. Your debts are real, but your heart led you astray, not to the dagger. Fragile trust flickered back to life. Eloise embraced her son, tears of relief mingling with grief. Denise served luncheon with renewed vigor. Even Giraud conceded a point, though begrudgingly. The villa exhaled, the immediate web of deceit untangled, alliances tentatively reformed under the sun's unyielding gaze. Hastings clapped Poirot on the back as they lunched on the terrace, overlooking the sparkling sea. Brilliant, Poirot. You've pierced the veil. The detective savoured a café au lait, his moustache impeccable. One veil, Hastings, but shadows multiply like twins in a mirror, reflecting deeper conspiracies across these cursed links. The afternoon stretched languidly, the golf course basking in tranquility, but Poirot's mind raced ahead, whispers of a dual plot echoing in his thoughts. The family's fragile peace held, for now, a dynamic mosaic of revelations pieced, urging onward to the fatal fairways hazards. Chapter 3. The fatal fairway. Noon sun blazed mercilessly over the Merlinville links, transforming the golf course into a shimmering arena where heat waves danced like elusive phantoms across the manicured turf. The sea breeze had faltered, leaving the air thick and stagnant, scented with salt and freshly mown grass, a deceptive tranquility masking the undercurrents of malice that had claimed Paul Renaud's life. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the swelter, orchestrated the day's proceedings with the precision of a symphony conductor, his linen suit pristine despite the climbing temperature. Captain Hastings mopped his forehead with a sodden handkerchief, grumbling about infernal heat waves, while Inspector Giraud stomped about the fairways, his spade in hand like a warrior's lance, determined to unearth victory through brute force. Monsieur Giraud, Poirot called, his voice carrying across the 9th hole where Renaud's body had been discovered. We reconstruct the fatal night, not with trenches, but with steps and shadows. Gather the players. The stage is set. The family and staff assembled reluctantly, Eloise, her face veiled by a wide-brimmed hat to shield both sun and scrutiny. Jack, his shirt sleeves rolled up, exuding a mix of defiance and exhaustion. Denise, carrying a parasol with quiet efficiency. Giraud's officers formed a perimeter, notebooks poised, as locals peered from the clubhouse veranda, drawn by the macabre spectacle. Poirot positioned each participant at their claimed starting points. Eloise at the villa's terrace, overlooking the course. Jack near the beach path, where his rendezvous with Bella had unfolded. Denise by the garden well. Now, mes amis, Poirot instructed, stopwatch in hand. Retrace your movements from 10 o'clock onward. Hastings, you play Renauld. Walk the links as he did. Hastings complied, strolling the fairway with exaggerated caution, his club swinging idly. The group moved in sync, their paths converging near the bunker, a shallow depression now marked by chalk outlines, the sand pristine but for deliberate scuffs. As Eloise approached, her heels sinking slightly into the turf, she faltered. Paul wandered here often, seeking solitude. But that night, I sensed a presence. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A presence, madame. Describe. She hesitated, glancing at the distant cliffs. A silhouette against the moon, tall, cloaked. It vanished into the hazards. Jack interjected from his position. Nonsense, mother. You're imagining things after your argument. Tension simmered, the sun amplifying every whispered doubt. Giraud, impatient, plunged his spade into a nearby mound, declaring, "The truth lies buried. These footprints, see how they weave." Soil flew as he dug, his efforts yielding nothing but roots and pebbles at first. Poirot watched with feigned politeness, his mind cataloguing inconsistencies, the footprints' irregular spacing, too deliberate for flight. Suddenly, Giraud's tool struck something solid, a muffled thud echoing across the green. Ha! Evidence! He excavated, furiously, revealing a bundled form wrapped in oilcloth, the body of a tramp, ragged clothes caked in dirt, a jagged scar snaking across his weathered cheek, his throat slit cleanly. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Eloise clutched her hat, swaying as if struck. Mon Dieu! Who is he? Giraud proclaimed triumphantly. The killer's accomplice, dispatched to silence. This scar matches descriptions from Chilean police files. Renault's past sins catch up. A vendetta from the mines. Hastings knelt beside the unearthed corpse, noting the fresh rigor. Dead no more than a day. Hidden post-murder. Poirot examined the wound, his gloved fingers tracing the precise cut. Slain with a blade similar to the dagger, efficient, no struggle. Linked, yes, to Renault's Chilean rivalries. A partner vanished, presumed drowned, but perhaps this tramp was a witness, scarred in a mine collapse. The discovery electrified the reconstruction. Eloise's revelations tumbled forth under Poirot's gentle coaxing, her voice a fragile thread. Paul spoke of a sinister visitor last month, a man from Santiago, demanding restitution for lost shares. He bore a scar, claimed kinship to the vanished partner. Paul dismissed him, but fear gnawed. Denise nodded vigorously. I served him tea. Rough fellow, eyes like coals. He left muttering curses. Jack's face darkened. Father never mentioned him to me. Why hide it? As accusations swirled, Giraud eyeing Jack suspiciously, Eloise defending her son's innocence, the group migrated to the villa's sunroom for respite. Iced lemonade sweating on a tray, but calm shattered when Denise, tidying Eloise's wardrobe for fresh linens, let out a piercing shriek. All rushed in. From the depths of the armoire, she pulled a bloody dagger, its blade crusted with dried crimson, identical to the murder weapon, but subtly different in hilt engraving. Eloise recoiled, her hand to her throat. Not mine. How? Giraud seized it triumphantly, concealed by the wife. Motive in her affair, perhaps jealousy turned fatal. Chaos ensued, Jack shielding his mother, Hastings protesting the leap. Poirot intervened, his voice a calm anchor. Examine, Monsieur Giraud. The blood, flaky, as if painted on, and the engraving, freshly etched, not aged. He produced a loupe, revealing tool marks. Tampering. This is not the original dagger, a duplicate, planted to incriminate Madame. Suspicion pivoted to Giraud himself, his overzealous methods under fire. Absurd, he bellowed, but Poirot traced the blade's origin to a local smithy, where records showed Giraud's officer purchasing it that morning. Sabotage, Inspector, to force a confession and claim glory. Giraud flushed crimson, admitting his subordinate's initiative to hasten closure. A blunder, yes, but my trenches unearthed the tramp. Poirot waved it aside. Errors compound, but truth endures. Tensions crested as the group returned to the links for the reconstruction's climax. Hastings, resuming his role as Renauld, ventured into a distant bunker, a deeper hazard flanked by dunes. As he stepped in, the sand shifted unnaturally, a low rumble building. Poirot, it's giving way. The ground collapsed in a cascade of grains, a rigged pit swallowing Hastings up to his waist. Panic surged, Eloise screaming, Jack lunging to pull him free, Denise fetching ropes from the shed. Poirot acted swiftly, directing the rescue with barked commands. The edges, reinforced with hidden boards, a trap triggered by weight. Hastings emerged sputtering, sand in his hair, but unharmed. Examination revealed wires buried beneath, connected to a mechanism in the dunes, tampered pulleys designed to simulate a natural sinkhole. Not accident, Poirot declared, but attempted silencing. Who knew Hastings would play the victim? Fingers pointed at Giraud anew, his trench digging perhaps a cover for rigging. He protested vehemently, but alibis from his men cleared him. They had been patrolling the cliffs during setup. Overzealous, yes, Poirot conceded, but not malicious. Your errors, Monsieur Giraud, blind you to the silhouette sharpening. The killer toys with us, their horizon of deceit vast. The family exhaled in vindication, Eloise thanking Poirot with a tremulous smile, Jack clapping Hastings on the back, Denise brewing restorative tea. As afternoon shadows lengthened, casting elongated figures across the fairways, a brief respite settled over the villa. Luncheon was served al fresco, the sea's sparkle a balm. Hastings regaled the group with exaggerated tales of his entombment, lightening the mood. Giraud slunk off to rethink his methods, grumbling about Belgian interference. Poirot savoured a chilled Vichy water, his grey cells whirring. A second body, a planted blade, a near-fatal trap. The pieces align, mon ami, but the true killer lurks, their shadow edging closer. The course basked in golden light, hazards now benign under the sun's wane. The chapter's perils navigated, vindication granted, the ensemble drew breath, dynamic revelations forging ahead to bloody entanglements, the fatal fairways secrets yielding but not surrendering. Chapter 4. Bloody entanglements. The afternoon sun hammered down on the Merlinville golf course like a relentless inquisitor, turning the verdant expanse into a furnace where every blade of grass seemed to quiver under the assault. Shadows stretched long and lean from the dunes, twisting like conspirators across the fairways, while the distant crash of waves provided a mocking underscore to the villa's simmering unrest. Hercule Poirot, his compact frame casting a surprisingly authoritative silhouette, gathered the fractured ensemble in the villa's sunroom. a glass-enclosed haven where potted palms rustled faintly, and the day's warmth was mocked by the flickering glow of her unnecessary fire in the grate, lit more for psychological comfort than necessity. The air hummed with unspoken accusations, the scent of blooming jasmine cloying and deceptive, much like the entanglements Poirot was about to unravel. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot intoned, his voice a silken thread weaving through the tension. We delve now into the bloody knots of the heart, romances that bind, betray, and sometimes bleed. Sit, the sun reveals all, even in this shaded sanctuary. Eloise perched on a wicker chaise, her fingers interlaced so tightly they blanched. Jack leaned against a column, arms crossed in a posture of feigned nonchalance. Denise hovered by the tea cart, her apron a crisp white flag amid the turmoil. Inspector Giraud slumped in an armchair, his spade propped against the wall like a discarded prop, his earlier blunders still smarting. Captain Hastings stood sentinel by the door, his military bearing a steady anchor. Poirot began with Jack, his green eyes locking onto the young man's with unyielding focus. Monsieur Jack, your rendezvous with Mademoiselle Bella Duvin. More than moonlight whispers, non? Letters exchanged, perhaps. Jack's facade cracked, his cheeks flushing under the tan. How did you? Yes, letters, but they're private. Poirot produced a slim envelope from his inner pocket, its seal broken, the paper faintly scented with lavender. Found in your quarters during a discreet search. Authorized, of course. This one stained with crimson ink hints at darker plots. The poison of secrecy will consume us if not addressed. Poison, monsieur? Or a metaphor for your father's disapproval? The room inhaled collectively. Eloise leaned forward, her voice a sharp whisper. Jack, you fool. Bella, the actress from the seaside troupe. Paul forbade it. Jack exploded in defense, his words tumbling like errant golf balls. She understands me, unlike this stifling family. The poison was figurative, our love threatened by father's iron grip on the purse strings. Denise interjected timidly, setting down a cup with a clink. I posted those letters, sir. Mademoiselle Bella seemed desperate in her replies, mentioned remedies for obstacles. Poirot's moustache quivered. Remedies? Ah, the shadows thicken. Let us summon her. The stage awaits its star. A constable was dispatched, returning with Bella Duvin, a vision of theatrical allure, her auburn curls cascading under a cloche hat, her dress a swirl of emerald silk that echoed the links outside. She entered with poise, but her eyes darted like cornered prey. Monsieur Poirot, this is about Paul Renaud's death. Poirot gestured to a seat. Indeed, mademoiselle. Your affair with Jack, passion or ploy? Bella's composure held, but her gloved hands trembled. Passion at first, but Paul discovered us, threatened to disinherit Jack. In desperation, I wrote of poisoning the opposition. Metaphorically, you understand. Remove barriers through persuasion. Giraud snorted, rising to pace. Persuasion, or literal toxin. That tramp unearthed, scarred like a Chilean miner, connects to Renaud's past. Perhaps you aided a vendetta. Bella paled, but Poirot interceded. Non, the tramp's scar tells a tale. He unveiled a locket from his case, pried from the corpse's pocket during autopsy review. This, engraved with, to my brother from E. Eloise, your initial? Eloise gasped, her hat slipping. Impossible. My brother, lost in the war, presumed dead. That scar from a childhood accident in Paris. Revelations cascaded like a sudden squall. Eloise's connection to the tramp unveiled him as her long-lost sibling. vengeful after discovering Renault's role in a Chilean scheme that bankrupted their family. He sought retribution, Eloise confessed, voice breaking. Contacted me secretly last week, demanded I expose Paul's homicide of his partner. I refused, fearing scandal. Jack's jaw dropped. Uncle Henry, alive? And you hid it? Denise nodded solemnly. I overheard whispers in the garden, Madame pleading with a scarred man by the dunes. The web tightened, suspicions coiling around Eloise like vines. Giraud pounced, motive for murder, to silence your brother and protect the fortune. But Poirot waved him silent, directing the group upward. To the attic. We chase Ghost now. The stairs creaked under their ascent, dust motes swirling in shafts of light piercing the roof slats. The space was a labyrinth of trunks and cobwebs, forgotten relics shrouded in sheets. Poirot illuminated a corner with a lantern borrowed from Denise, revealing a grotesque figure, a corpse-like mannequin crafted from porcelain and cloth, its joints wired to pulleys hidden in the rafters. Behold the spectre of the lynx, Poirot declared, tugging a wire. The dummy lurched forward, its limbs flailing in eerie simulation of ghostly apparitions, shadows playing across the walls like wraiths on the moonlit course. Bella stifled a scream. That's from my troop's props, stolen last month. Jack whirled on her. You, haunting father to madness. Under Poirot's probing, Bella crumbled, her theatrical mask dissolving. Yes, I rigged it with Henri's help. He supplied the wires, I the mannequin. We terrorized Paul into confessing his Chilean sins, apparitions on the ninth hole, whispers in the wind. But murder, never. Henri wanted justice, not blood. Giraud clapped irons on her wrists. Accomplice to terror, enough for custody. Bella protested, her voice rising in a crescendo. Henri vanished after our last setup. I thought he'd fled. The arrest sent shockwaves. Eloise weeping for her brother's fate. Jack grappling with betrayal. Denise offering quiet solace with handkerchiefs. Poirot clarified. Mademoiselle Duvin admits the hauntings, shattering the villa's illusions of supernatural peril. But the dagger's thrust, not her hand. Uneasy alliances formed in the aftermath, the group descending to the sunroom where tea steamed in delicate china, a ritual of normalcy amid upheaval. Eloise extended a tentative hand to Jack. Forgive my secrets. Fear blinded me. He nodded, the rift mending in shared vulnerability. Giraud, chagrined by another peripheral unmasking, muttered concessions. Your methods, Poirot, irritatingly effective. Hastings beamed, the fire's glow warming the room as sun dipped toward horizon. As evening hues painted the links in amber, a fragile harmony enveloped Villa Geneviève. Denise prepared a simple supper, her efficiency a balm. The family conversed in low tones, truths bleeding out like cathartic wounds. Poirot confided in Hastings on the terrace, the sea's rhythm a soothing backdrop. Bloody entanglements untied, mon ami, illusions shattered, paranoia quelled. Yet the core pulse beats, the killer's silhouette now vivid, no ambiguities to cloud the dawn's revelation. The course lay serene under twilight's veil, hazards now mere dips in the landscape. The chapter's knots loosened, forging paths forward without a single loose strand, the narrative surging toward its pinnacle with undimmed intrigue. Chapter 5. The Links of Justice. The morning unfurled over Merlinville-sur-Mer like a silken banner, the sun ascending in a triumphant arc that bathed the golf course in liquid gold, banishing the lingering mist that had cloaked its secrets. Waves lapped rhythmically against the cliffs, a soothing cadence that seemed to wash away the stains of bloodshed. while gulls wheeled overhead in jubilant spirals. Villa Geneviève, once a fortress of shadows, now stood open and inviting, its terraces alive with the murmur of assembled survivors. Eloise Renauld, her elegance tempered by a night of restless vigil. Jack, his youthful vigor restored but etched with newfound maturity. Denise, moving with quiet grace as she arranged chairs on the lawn overlooking the links. Inspector Giraud, his spade abandoned, nursing a grudging respect. And Captain Hastings, ever the loyal chronicler, notebook in hand. Hercule Poirot had summoned them to this sun-kissed expanse for the denouement, his figure a compact beacon of certainty amid the verdant sprawl. "Bonjour, mes amis," Poirot greeted, his voice resonant as he stood at the edge of the ninth hole, the sea breeze tousling his immaculate moustache. "We gather not in accusation, but in illumination. The links, these chains of turf and hazard, mirror the entanglements we have unraveled. Sit, let the breeze carry away the vestiges of mystery as I weave the deadly threads into a tapestry of truth." They complied, settling on wicker seats arranged in a semicircle, the grass soft underfoot, the distant thwack of golfers on adjacent holes, a reminder of life's persistent rhythm. Poirot began with the forged summons, that urgent telegram luring him to the villa, a bait dangled with calculated precision. It was no cry for help, but a lure to ensnare a witness of repute. Paul Renauld penned it himself. "Non." The phrasing, too theatrical, the urgency feigned, traced to a Parisian telegraph office, sent by a veiled woman. Eloise shifted imperceptibly, her gloved hands folding in her lap. Jack leaned forward. "But why summon you if murder was afoot?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "To establish alibi through chaos, mon jeune." The killer anticipated scrutiny, planting a detective as unwitting pawn. He transitioned seamlessly to the bloody entanglements, his gestures painting vivid strokes in the air. Greed and vengeance intertwined like roots beneath these greens. The Chilean mines, Renault's fortune built on a partner's disappearance, ruled accident but reeking of homicide. The tramp, unearthed by Giraud's spade, your brother, Madame Eloise, scarred not just by mines but by betrayal. He returned as avenger, his whispers in the garden a demand for restitution. Denise nodded faintly, recalling the overheard pleas. Giraud interjected gruffly. "And the mannequin haunts? Bella's props, yes, but who pulled the strings?" Poirot produced an overlooked pipe from his pocket, a humble briar, its bowl etched with faint initials. "This, found discarded in the dunes after the trap's collapse, traces of poison in the stem, strychnine, subtle enough to induce paranoia, not death." "Whose?" "Yours, Madame Eloise, initials E.R. from your maiden days." Eloise's poise held, but her eyes betrayed a flicker. "Absurd. I don't smoke." Poirot smiled faintly. "Non, but you wield it as tool, laced to heighten Renault's fears, making his phantoms real, priming him for the fatal duel you staged." The assembly stirred, murmurs rising like the breeze. Hastings gasped. "Eloise, but she grieves so." Poirot paced the turf, his steps measured. "Grief as facade, Captain. Observe the mosaic." The affair confessed, not fleeting, but a calculated wedge to fracture trust. The tramp, your brother, silenced with a slit throat, buried to mimic Giraud's methods, diverting blame. Bella's involvement, coerced through Jack's passion, her haunts a smokescreen for your nocturnal strikes. Jack surged to his feet. "Mother, impossible, you loved father." Eloise rose slowly, her silhouette sharp against the azure sky, the wind whipping her scarf like a banner of surrender. "Love. twisted into obsession, Jack. Your father betrayed me. In Chile, his accident claimed my family's shares, leaving us destitute. I married him for vengeance, bided time as the fortune grew. The summons, to frame a narrative of external threat. The stabbing, disguised as a duel with my brother, whom I lured and dispatched first. Her voice, once melodic, now carried the chill of the depths. The pipe, to erode his sanity, make his end seem self-inflicted paranoia. But Poirot, you unraveled it all. The confession hung in the air, a thunderclap in the clear morning. Giraud leaped up, handcuffs at the ready. Arrest her, double homicide. But Poirot raised a hand. Patience, Inspector, let her weave the end. Eloise continued, her poise fracturing like sun-cracked earth. The golf club smear, my touch, to implicate Jack briefly, buy time, the trap on Hastings, a desperate bid to eliminate the probing mind, driven by fatal obsession, love curdled into greed, shadows from Chile demanding blood. Tears traced her cheeks, not of remorse, but release. I thought the links would bury it all, the perfect hazard. Authorities descended swiftly, summoned by Giraud's whistle, uniformed officers materializing from the clubhouse, their boots thudding across the green. Handcuffs clicked with inexorable finality, Eloise's wrists bound as she cast a last lingering gaze at the sea, its vastness a mirror to her unraveling schemes. Jack approached, his voice choked. Why, Mother? We could have faced it together. She touched his cheek briefly. Ambition blinds, my son. Forgive the facade. As she was led away, the villa seemed to exhale, its sins purged in the open air. Relief bloomed among the survivors. Denise embraced Jack, her loyalty a steadfast bridge over the chasm of betrayal. Giraud shook Poirot's hand with reluctant admiration. Your grey cells triumph, Belgian, my spade bows. Hastings clapped his friend on the back. Masterful, Poirot, the puzzle complete. The detective adjusted his hat, surveying the now peaceful links, the bunkers mere dips, the fairways inviting paths. Complete, yes, no enigmas linger, the chains of justice link all. They lingered on the terrace for a farewell luncheon, fresh seafood from the market, wine chilled to perfection, laughter tentative but genuine as stories shifted from horror to hope. Jack vowed to honor his father's legitimate legacy, Denise to remain a steadfast guardian. Giraud regaled with tales of past cases, his bluster softened. As plates cleared, Poirot rose. Adieu, mes amis. The sea calls me back to calmer pursuits. Handshakes and embraces followed, the group dispersing like mist under the sun. Jack to the villa's future, Denise to her duties, Giraud to reports. Poirot and Hastings strolled the links one last time, the turf springy underfoot, the horizon infinite. A tragic obsession, Poirot, Hastings reflected, club in hand for a casual swing. Love's fatal twist. The detective nodded, eyes on the waves. Obsession chains the soul, mon ami, but justice frees it. See, the course gleams anew, no shadows to mar its grace. A gull cried overhead, a final punctuation. As their taxi wound away, the villa receded, a white speck against the green, purged and peaceful. No loose threads dangled, the narrative sealed in triumph, the echoes of resolution lingering on the breeze-swept links, eternally tranquil.